Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a live reaction, live player rating stream after Chelsea 2, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Who on earth would have seen that coming? To be honest, I was kind of weirdly confident going into this game. It's just the thing, we just always seem to beat Spurs at the bridge, except when Conte is Chelsea manager for some reason. Was it the season we won the league, or was it the season after? God knows. But anyway, today we turn up, and frankly, Spurs got battered. Now, sure, they had some of their chances, and it was only 2-0. It could have been more, but I'll be honest, I don't think there was a single player today who wasn't at least good. Like, I was so happy with pretty much everyone today, including the manager. So, what a day. What a time to be alive. I mean, it's the weird thing about Chelsea is, right, obviously, Villa first half was utterly diabolical. And we played a really good second half. It kind of robbed by VAR. And now we're in a position, okay, we now beat Spurs. So theoretically, could we still fight for 6? But let's not think about that. Let's just take one game at a time. With Chelsea, you never know. The next 4 games, when you look at the opponents on paper, we should be beating all of them quite comfortably. But we probably won't. So let's not dwell on that. Let's just focus on the fact that we did beat Spurs today. And hey, as much as the season has been another terrible one, we beat Spurs home and away. So I'll take that. You know, I'm buzzing about that. Naishi, I'll start with you. First of all, thank you for coming back on. I appreciate it, bro. Did you also feel confident going into the game? Is it just one of these things, Spurs at the bridge, we just kind of seem to always get the job done? Or because of how the season were, you were still pessimistic going into? How did you feel, and how do you feel now, bro?
No, honestly, yeah, I was a bit unsure about this game. I did think we had a chance because you never really know what kind of Chelsea turns up. Honestly, you can get the Villa from the first half, you can get the one from the second half of the Villa game. It's a difficult one with Chelsea. We're very inconsistent. Even within game, we're very inconsistent. But today, I felt we controlled the game from start to finish, really. We did give away a few chances that didn't really help with confidence. But still, in terms of control, in terms of keeping possession and almost keeping them at bay at a certain point, I think we did that very well. And I was happy with everything, including the manager, I was happy with. So that says something, because I'm not his greatest fan. So it's a good day.
It absolutely is a good day. David, I'll come to you first of all. Thank you for coming back on. I appreciate you as always, bro. You and me have been going back and forth, not in a bad way, but still going back and forth about Poch and all sorts of other things in the group chat the last couple of days. But hey, whether Poch has done great or not, I mean, even I think on today specifically, he's done a great job. But I think today, like I said earlier, I think just as a whole team, we did a really good job today. And that hasn't happened very often. We've had games where Palmer himself was great, or the attack scored loads of goals. But then the defense, even in games where we did win, was sometimes still dodgy. Or it was the other way around, and the attack missed everything, and the defense was quite good. Today was a complete team performance, I felt. Do you see that the same? And also, how did you feel going into the game? Did you think we would win, or did we kind of surprise you, if that makes sense?
Well, I was kind of surprised that we didn't waste a lot of chances, because that was what I was expecting. I was maybe expecting a goal draw, so like 2-2 or a 1-1, where both teams missed chances. But today only Spurs decided to miss big chances, and we were kind of clinical for the first time in forever. So that surprised me, but generally, I think the game was what I expected. We knew Spurs are going to play a high line. They always do. And we knew we were probably going to do the same thing with Cucurella as a second partner to Caicedo when we are attacking with the ball. So, yeah, maybe Ange didn't watch our game against Aston Villa, because in the first half, Tottenham looked completely clueless. They looked like we looked against Aston Villa. They absolutely had no idea what was going on. And even though we did not create a buttload of chances, we still, I think, played very well in the first half, and we pretty much killed their confidence completely.
No, exactly. I completely agree. And obviously there was, Fantasy Feature to us as it outplayed second half, really, but we did well to keep that clean sheet. I'm not sure about outplayed as such. It was quite obvious that after how the first half went, that Spurs would come out in the second half and be more on it, be more aggressive, show a bit more intensity, and put us under more pressure. But I did feel we played too direct at times. Like once Spurs put us under pressure, whenever we got the ball, we tried so directly to try and score ourselves. Yeah. We lost the ball just too easily, and that allowed Spurs to create a bit more pressure. But I thought we dealt with the pressure really well overall. Sure, they had one or two moments, but in the grand scheme of things, nothing huge other than straight after we made it 2-0 really, and that Romero header in the first half. Other than that, I didn't feel Spurs were particularly close to scoring on any occasions, if I'm honest. I might be forgetting moments, but in the grand scheme of things, I just thought we dealt with it well. And Cucurella in midfield just seems to be an
phenomenal.
I just don't know how this has happened, but we were arguing in the group chat. I was like, this has been here all season. Why is it taking until late April? But it's not the night to complain about this. Like, hey, he's done it against Villa. He stuck to it again. I'll go with you again, Dimitar, first before I ask Nashi the same question. Did you think we would do the Cucurella thing again? Because obviously I just didn't know, right? Obviously we did it against Villa in the second half, and I was like, are we going to do this again, or was this a one-off thing? Because Villa sat really deep, and obviously Spurs would have been and were a very different kind of opponent to what Villa were in that game. So I just didn't know whether we'd do it again. I was very happy to see that we did, but did you expect us to do it again?
I personally did, yeah. Not only because we have insane injury issues. I just think that in such situations we have seen over the years, sometimes there can happen these magical changes which happen at halftime, and then the manager decides, okay, I will stick with that because it gives us a new dimension of playing. And this is exactly what we saw. We saw a completely new way of playing against Villa in the second half. Today it was not exactly the same, but it pretty much had the same dynamic duo of Caicedo and Cucurella, who were both, I found, very well, even though they did not have that much work to do because we were so deep defensively in the second half, where basically the entire team was defending. But I felt that as a duo, they complement each other very well. And I think, yeah, like I said, Spurs were not prepared for that, even though I think they should have been, because I personally expected it, and I thought it would be logical for us to continue to play in a manner which gave us more confidence. Because in the second half against Villa, I don't remember if I said it on your stream, but we looked confident, which was something we did not do for the past month, maybe, or so. So
absolutely,
yeah.
No, I agree. It's a weird one. Like I say, I wasn't 100% sure. So fair enough. If you were quite confident that we would do it, I agree that Spurs looked a little bit lost. Like, I'm like, fair enough if you don't fully expect it going into the game, but you should at least be prepared in case we do that. And they didn't seem to be prepared for it at all. Nashi, I'll ask you the same thing. Did you think we'd do the Cucurella thing again? Or like, did you see it like Dimitar? We were like, well, it worked so well against Villa. Surely we're doing it again. Or did you think it was kind of a one-off thing?
Yeah, I thought it was a one-off thing, to be honest. I really didn't expect him to go into that game doing that kind of tactical adaptation with the Spurs. And it really worked well, like you guys touched on it. I think Spurs were a bit uncomfortable. They were trying to work us out in that first half, and they were really struggling to see how we were playing. And I thought Pochettino just was kind of experimenting with that Villa game, because the game were kind of chasing the game, and I thought he's not going to do this again. But I think since it worked with Villa, and it really did work with Villa, it seems like a tactic that can be used if Plan A is not working. But I do think against the bigger sides and the Arsenals, the Man Cities will struggle to adopt that kind of play, because it really gives up a lot of space behind. It would rely on Mudryk.
Do you think it gives us a lot of space? Because obviously when Cucurella shifts into midfield, you kind of have a back three behind that. And obviously the way our wingers, they're not like super high up. Both Mudryk and Mudryk are kind of more like left mid, right mid situation. So I feel like it's not really all too different to what your rest defense is when you just play a normal back three with a two-man midfield in front of that. But obviously we started from a back four and then shift it across, and we only do it in possession. Obviously, because Cucurella, one of his best traits is reading the game well. Sure, sometimes he overcommits, but in the grand scheme of things, his best trait for me has always been reading the game. And
also, work rate.
Well, okay, that's fair. Fair enough, work rate. But I still think reading the game he's really good at. And I feel like if you put a player in midfield that does that, you're always going to look better than when you don't have that. Like, it's like the main thing is just stopping attacks easier. And I mean, Dimitar said it, you said it there, and actually, the main thing for me in the second half against Villa and today, even if not for the whole of the second half, but still, I just felt, especially when we controlled the game and we had the ball and we tried to attack, what happened when we lost the ball is like night and day compared to pretty much for the whole rest of the season so far, because the rest defense all of a sudden works. Like, it's like, sure, every now and again there's an over-the-top ball, but no one needs to overcommit. No one needs to overstretch because we have enough players in enough areas to stop count. Like, we have enough players in wide areas, we have enough players in the middle. You don't need to overcommit to anywhere. Like, I get what you mean in terms of the really good teams when they just, because it won't, we only do this when we have the ball, right? So say we play Man City and we only have 38, 40% possession, then obviously we do this a lot less. But I think when we get a chance to control play, I think this will almost always work. Like, sure, someone like Pep will probably find a way to do something about it. And you never know with Chelsea. All of our players have the bozo gene. So this is not really about, are they good, are they bad? Sometimes they just have howlers. So I don't necessarily think this is, structure, system, or even player-based. It's just like sometimes they just have brain farts. I don't know. But it's interesting the way you see it's kind of they open up space. How do you feel that Cucurella pushing into that area leaves space in behind? Like, what makes you think that?
I just feel like, especially with, I wouldn't say Badiashile is the quickest player. If it was someone a bit more quicker in that area where they can kind of recover and cover Cucurella, if he's kind of out of position, it can be a problem going forward. And as you said as I touched on about Man City or the really bigger side, they'll switch that ball as quick as possible. It's just put you in a scenario where we lose the possession in the middle of the park, and then Cucurella kind of is beaten. Then that whole gap he's left, he's kind of be exposed really if they kind of transition that ball as quick as possible. So it's the advantage as well as a disadvantage, and I just feel like they'll need to work on it a bit more to kind of touch on those a few things that are not quite there yet. And I feel like we need to see more games with adopting this kind of style than.
No, I agree with that. Obviously, with every tactical change you do, you have to see it a few more times to see, does it actually work all the time, or is it just a bit of almost a purple patch within the tactical switch, right? Couple of things before we get into the player ratings. First of all, JC saying here, for the longest time, I've wanted to see Reece in that Cucurella role. And actually, I agree. I think this is how we should deploy Reece. First of all, you make him run up and down the wing less, which should save his hamstrings a bit. So that would be a benefit. But also you get his physique in midfield, which that in itself is a big benefit. And also his passing from that role can be arguably more beneficial than it can be from the wide areas. Plus, we have Gusto and him. And if you do that, there is a possibility to play them both. And, well, isn't that fantastic? We'll talk about it not today, but on another stream, maybe even after the season. But the serious questions that need to be asked whether Cucurella should be the left back that's being sold. Like, the serious questions need to be asked about this at the moment. But another thing I wanted to mention, love the Gallagher banner. Now, I know some people will hate this. I don't. I actually like it. One thing I will say, and I did see this online and someone suggested, because obviously clearly the message behind this is more about stop selling our academy products that are clearly good enough for the team for pure profit. That's essentially the message, right? But I think they could have made that message more broader, more clearer, rather than a Gallagher specific thing. Like, I love Gallagher. He's been captain pretty much all of the season, really. He's been our third, maybe second best player, because Gusto has also been injured quite a lot, obviously. But they could have made it a more overall statement. But in general, I don't know how you guys feel, and I'll ask you about it now. You can share your thoughts as well. But for me, this is match-going fans doing this is why match-going fans will always, and I'm not one of these always match-going fans. And I know there's always a bit of an argument, international fans are equally as important as match-goers. In the grand scheme of things, they are. But in terms of having an influence on what happens at the club, match-goers will always be a little bit above fans that can't go to the games, purely because in the stadium, you can do things like this. And I'm not saying that this will actually stop us selling Gallagher. Well, I think we all know that Clear Lake do not give two shits about what the fans think. I think the last 2 years have proven that. But two things it does for me. First of all, it makes it more difficult for them to spin that Gallagher saga when they do sell him in the summer, like they spun the Mount saga. And also, it just makes them look like idiots. Not that they need help doing that, but, it's it's still like, I don't know. Just it makes it very clear what we think. Do you know what I mean? And they will do their thing regardless. But some people, obviously, like Lewis on Twitter, people would have seen it, I guess, put it out as how stupid will the fan base look if Gallagher now goes to Spurs after we gave Gallagher a banner against Spurs. But it's not on these players to make that decision. Gallagher already refused to leave twice. He refused a genuine contract from Everton when Chelsea agreed an offer, and he just said, "I don't want to go" last summer. So if he leaves, it ain't on him. So I don't agree that it makes the fans look stupid. I just think it makes the club and the owners look stupid, and they should, because we can't just let
They
them
are
do
stupid.
what they want. I mean, Dimitar, where do you stand on the Gallagher ban? I know this is maybe not the biggest conversation, but someone put it in the chat circle.
I think, as you said, he has been our second or third best player this season, and he has shown also the ability to grow as a player during the season, because last year, and maybe the year before that, all we heard about Gallagher is he's an amazing talent, but sometimes he runs like a headless chicken. And this is true. I can admit that. But this season, he added end product to his game, and he added quantifiable stats, which prove he is very useful. He is very good on the ball. He improves his passing. He starts to dribble. And yeah, this is basically all you want from a hardworking type of player that he is. Because we all know he's not the type of player like Enzo, who is smooth on the ball and who looks great doing these Hollywood passes, for example. No, Gallagher is a hard worker, and he has excelled at that. He has improved a lot. So I think if we sell him, this would be a massive mistake. Doesn't matter to which club. They can sell him to Barcelona if they want. I don't care.
No,
selling him just as an action, I mean, selling him as an action, I think would be very bad for the club, because we will miss him for sure. Even if Lavia is fit, if Enzo is fit next season, we will miss his energy for sure, and also his leadership. The thing which impressed me today maybe the most with him was he was constantly shouting at defenders and other midfielders when something was wrong. Especially in the second half, we saw that, because we were pinned down basically for 30 or 35 minutes in front of our 6-yard box. So it was very clear he was shouting directions at people, and he was trying to always be in the action, always be in the mix to stop shots, to make blocks. And I like that. I think this is something which we need to keep. And also, just saying something on that thing that Neshi said about the spaces, I agree, but I don't agree that it's going to be from the Cucurella side, because today, actually, the only spaces we let in was on the right side, where Brendan Johnson had maybe 2 or 3 chances where he had space. And I think that was mostly because Gilchrist is not at all experienced enough to do this fluid formation change. But maybe if we have Reece James on the right back and Cucurella on the left, they can both sometimes go into midfield or stay in a back three, because they are both very versatile, both very agile, and they can pass the ball.
If both could do it.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that I think Arteta is trying to do that with Arsenal a lot this season. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. But if both backs can do it, it will be very dangerous, because it will just confuse opponents. And if it's similar to what Tottenham were today in the first half, it can be very beneficial, because some of the time it's not only great defending which makes you clean sheets, it's also having the tactical awareness to just outsmart your opponent or confuse them so they can't create chances. And this was, for me, half the reason why we got a clean sheet, is because Tottenham were absolutely toothless in the first half. So yeah.
They absolutely were. And actually, I'll come to you. We'll get into more tactical chat in a minute. Just quickly on this Gallagher stuff before I take it off the screen again. Your thoughts on this? Where do you stand on it? I've seen someone said, why not for Chalobah? This is just someone asking that. I'm like, do you even think? Chalobah was injured from August till February. Obviously, if you're giving one player a banner, you're not giving it to Chalobah when Gallagher's played every game and been captain almost all season. Like, it's not comparable, is it? But where do you stand on the banner? Do you think it's like overdoing it for a player that's not quite good enough? For me, it's always like a banner for me isn't about quality. It's about loyalty more than anything else. Because if we're talking about just if you're good, you get a banner. Well, then why didn't Eto'o get a banner? You know, like why didn't, like, I don't know. I mean, Thiago Silva should, or did he get a banner? I can't even remember. But you know, why didn't Giroud get a banner? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's about loyalty and loving the club when it's about a banner, not about you're a good player or you're not a good player. I think Nashi is having a few internet issues, so we'll leave that at that. We'll bring up the lineup. Before that, though, I mean, we can talk about let's talk about the lineup itself. because it's quite a quick one. We had 14 injuries, 14 players unavailable today. So every single player that started here was the only players that we had available. Because Dizazi is now also injured. So Padia, Schill, and Chalobah were only two first team centre backs. Gilchrist is obviously a centre back, but has played right back for the first team all season. Even though it was obviously partly still centre back today. The only thing you could have done is Achampong at right back over Gilchrist, but Achampong hasn't played until today. Finding a way to debut today, so that's fantastic. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, Dimitar, with the amount of injuries we had, you couldn't do anything else, right? So
No, I mean,
not even a reaction to be stated.
yeah.
To the line.
Although I was thinking maybe he could actually not play Mudryk because he's been awful, but in the first half, Mudryk was probably the best he's been all season. So yeah, so basically there were no options other than maybe potentially subbing Mudryk or not starting him. I mean.
Exactly. I'm not sure why people are talking about Reese's banner, but yes, they do. Nation, quickly, I'll bring it back up now. Your thoughts on a Gallagher banner? Like, where do you stand on this?
Yeah. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties. Yeah, with Conor Gallagher, I think that was a great move from the Much Going fans. I think this was a statement to the owners to say that, but look, we're not going to let you sell one of our valuable assets. Like Gallagher has really shown that he's a true Chelsea player. Like he really plays for the badge, and I'm growing in game by game more closer with Gallagher, because I was with the same impression and the same opinion that he kind of runs like a headless chicken. He's just running and wasting his energy. But now he's getting better technically. He's using his energy, and he's kind of and I really love how he kind of helped with that penalty incident with Palmer and Mudryk and Jack.
Weeks ago, yeah.
That was a true captain move right there, kind of showing authority, and he's finding a voice. I felt like he was a bit more timid at the beginning, but now he's really showing himself and showing he's captain material. And I was a bit tentative at first when I heard about the Conor Gallagher banner, but only because of the Mason Mount situation where we've done a banner and now he's gone to Man United. So I just think the match-going fans need to be a bit careful with doing banners. Just be sure that that player's not going to go.
With Mount, I in a way agree. But in this case, I think the fans are fully aware that there is a good chance that Gallagher does leave, and that was almost the reason why they made a banner. I think if Gallagher has 3 years left on his contract and no one's talking about Gallagher going anywhere, I'm not sure he even gets a banner. I think it's because there's a good chance we sell him for pure profit. That's why the banner was made. And honestly, I don't fully disagree with it. Let me get back into the lineup. Neshi, it's not really much point to ask you about it. There's the only players that we had available. So there you go. I do have a couple of things that I want to show up on screen in a second. Now, first of all, the super chat here by Ricky. Shout out to you, Ricky. Appreciate it. It says, keep Connor and Trev at all costs up the Chelsea. I mean, we discussed it. Was it the last stream? I can't remember. The problem is that the financial situation that we put us in, we're already in this. Sure, if you go back 2 years, do things differently and then keep them, right? The problem is now you're in a position where, especially keeping both, seems near on impossible without dragging ourselves into points deductions and all sorts of other problems next season, or just not signing players and then having those problems. But yeah, I completely agree with you. In an ideal world, Ricky, we would, of course, keep them. Shout out Amit, because before we went live here, he's in the chat as well. He sent me a couple of stats. Oh, I didn't realize it was this big. Anyway, you can't see us for a second, but there you go. Is what it is. Top 5 players ground duels won from either side. Caicedo won 9, Cucurella won 9, Gallagher won 8, Madueke won 8, fair play to him. Jackson won 7, and Tottenham's most was Son with 5. Battle for the bridge, I like the phrase, but especially that's what I meant earlier when I said it was a team performance. It wasn't like 1 or 2 standouts. It was just multiple players seriously turned up. But in terms of what Naishi said about Gallagher as well, what I really like about it is I think Chelsea fans are almost for the first time since John Terry realizing, I guess you could mention Hazard to some extent, but realizing what a player being young and talented and then growing up, what that actually means. Because obviously with Ruben, we had him young, but then he was injured for so much of his period that kind of growing up and becoming a better player as you hit your mid-20s didn't really happen so quite clearly for him, right? And obviously, Hudson-Odoi also had the injury and was sold before he ever got to that stage. Because what you see with Gallagher now is what happens with most players when they go from being a talented player that needs to still learn, a few things about professional football in the early 20s to becoming, 23, 24, 25, getting into that age, maturing a little bit. And all of a sudden, things just come together. And that's why it so often triggers me when people judge players like that are super young, that have like a bad game, a bad season, even like that doesn't mean that this is the full potential of a player. And I think Gallagher and also Trevoh Chalobah, I think Trevoh Chalobah even managed to become a significantly better player while he was injured. I don't know how he did that, but he fucking did it. So he did it. Mainly it was maturing for me. Like even before the game, I'm not sure if you guys noticed it, but when the team was like huddling together and like Chalobah was the dude making the team talk on the pitch before the game started. And I'm like, who would have thought a couple of years ago that Chalobah would end up being the guy that makes the team talk just before we kick off against Tottenham? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, big up to them. I mean, obviously, if you guys want to touch on that, Dimitar, do you agree with my sentiment there? That like, I'm not saying every
generally yes,
Gallagher, but I think part
generally
of
yes. Yeah, I mean,
getting better is just maturing.
The thing is, in the past 5 years, let's say, we had a buttload of talented young players, but none of them developed for various reasons. I don't think we ever saw the full potential of Pulisic, of Loftus-Cheek, as you said, even of Havertz, of Mount. Let's see who else. Even Reece James, I think to this day we have not seen his full potential because he just can't stay fit. So Gallagher growing in front of our eyes, I think is something like you said we have been deprived of, and something we have not seen for a long time. So this is even more. It makes it even more special when you know that he is a homegrown Chelsea player and that he's a Chelsea fan and that he wants to stay. Yeah. So on that part, I completely agree. One thing I don't agree is that a lot of people say also one good game, one bad game doesn't make a player bad. Well, I think the opposite. One good game at 19 also doesn't mean you're good. Because
I agree.
You have to develop. And development is very important, especially between 20 and 25, where a player can change his play style, he can change his position. His talent will not change, but his application of that talent will change. And this is the thing which I think Gallagher did the best, because he applied what he was best at in the best possible way. Of course, the Poch system helps. We have talked about it's a bit chaotic. And in that kind of system, an energetic player who improves his tackling and passing can really thrive.
Absolutely. The only thing I'll say on that is it's a thing in many sports. Like I know more from F1, but it applies to football all the same. When you have talented drivers, players, you initially kind of do need to judge them off their peaks, because every youngster, what comes with experience more than anything is being able to be consistent and being able to be at your best or close to your best on a consistent basis. But it's still, when you're judging, is someone, at least, does he have the potential to be good?
Oh, yeah.
You need to look at the peaks. No, I'm not saying you didn't say it. I just wanted to add to it. But no, so I agree with you, though. One good game don't mean anyone's good. But one good game, if it's a really good game, you can see, okay, he could be good. But then it's a question of that player, of the team around him. Does that actually translate into a long-lasting career? But let's finally get into these player ratings. Let's start with Đorđe Petrović, who, for me, gets the lowest rating of our players today because he didn't really have much to save, and I thought his passing was dreadful. So I'm giving him a 5 because he genuinely didn't have to do anything. I mean, did he have to make a difficult save? Maybe I'm forgetting something.
He made one save, I think, in the end of the first half, but that was it.
There you go. Well, maybe 5 is a tad harsh, but I feel like if I just give him a basic 6, then that doesn't really, like, I want to slightly downgrade him because I felt his passing was quite poor. I mean, he had a passing accuracy of 56%.
Yeah, but I think that the instruction in the second half was basically to boot it long as much as possible.
Sure, but boot it to your teammate. You know what I mean? Like, even in the general direction, not like 20 meters too short or too far. Do you know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. We've given him more for conceding goals. I agree, but that's just how I see it for goalies. If a goalie isn't at fault for a goal, then he shouldn't get a lower rating. But okay, to actually officially apparently made 4 saves. You know what? I'll say 5.5.
Yeah, I'll say 5 is a bit too low. I feel that.
Fair enough. Maybe 5 is too harsh. But yeah, like I said, it's passing. And I know obviously the plan was to play it longer today. But yeah, then you need to at least be in a rough direction of your team. And if you've got one striker, you need to play the ball roughly to him. Otherwise, what's he going to do? Poor Jackson. But yeah, Dimitar, 5 too harsh for you, 5.5 more fair? Or would you give him that average 6?
I was thinking about the 6, like just a basic 6, because we said it. He did not have a lot to do. His passing was not that bad, but also, I mean, even if a keeper makes one save, if there was one shot at him that game, even that one save is a good enough outcome, because he cannot make 20 saves if they just don't shoot. So in that case, I feel like downgrading it so much as a 5 is a bit too much. But a 6 from me, I think, is fair. Clean sheet. So yeah, and nothing more we can ask. I was praying in the last 5 minutes, don't let them score a goal so we ruin this clean sheet. I was just praying.
Yeah, exactly. Naishi, would you also go for a 6, or do you think the passing was enough to go lower than that?
I'll go with a 6, to be honest, because with the massive thing, I'm so happy we got a clean sheet. That's probably the best thing outcome of this game. That I was also praying about this clean sheet, because I think Tottenham was just crowding our box in the final few minutes. So I'm really happy about that. And with Pep, especially games, I've been a bit critical of him. So in comparison to his other games, I think there was an improvement there. But maybe his distribution was not quite there. But when you kept a clean sheet, when you haven't really for the past, I don't know when we last kept a clean sheet, to be honest.
Neither do I. I'll take a look. Quickly.
I think we have 6 this season thus far before this game.
Yeah. Actually, the last one isn't even that long ago. It was against Everton when we beat them 6-0. But outside of Everton, the last one was who I'm scrolling.
In February or January, maybe, something like that.
In the FA Cup, January 26th, when the first leg against Villa, when we played 0-0. So, and if I go back to the last time in the Premier League, it was the 13th of January against Fulham. Again, outside of that 6-0 against Everton. So, yeah, no, you guys are right. Let's give him that 6. I think that is fair. And now, honestly, high ratings galore. Now, we'll talk about Alfie Gilchrist. You know, like Dimitar touched on, there was a few occasions where you could see that he's maybe still has a little bit of a lack of experience and maybe a lack of confidence in how much he is allowed to or should commit. But starting with the 2 centre-backs, and I got to start with him. My guy, Trevoh Chalobah. What a header, by the way. Like, I'm not sure about
phenomenal.
But I've not seen a headed goal this good in a long time. He looked like Cristiano Ronaldo. He was flying in the air, levitating. Like, it was unbelievable. And then it looked
like that Ivanovic goal in the final in Lisbon.
Benfica, yeah, exactly.
Against Benfica, yeah.
You're exactly right. That's exactly what it looked like. What a goal, what a header. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. But even defensively, he officially won man of the match as well. Let me just look up some stats. I don't know if the stats look good, but I assume they will. 84% pass and accuracy. Okay, could be a tad better, but obviously Spurs pressed. We played it long sometimes. So even still, 3 out of 6 long balls is good. Okay, actually, the duels don't look that great, if I'm honest. Like, it's 0 out of 2.
In the last 20 minutes, he made a couple of slight mistakes, which were not punished. But for the first 65, 70, he was phenomenal for me.
Yeah. No, he absolutely was. I think with the goal, and I felt that he was super good defensively as well. There was this one tackle where he first made a little mistake himself, actually. But that tackle, with what he cleaned that up with,
he was against 2 players.
Yeah,
he was against 2 players for that tackle.
Won the ball perfectly. I wish I could see a replay of it. I hope I see it later on Twitter or whatever. What a tackle that was. I'm going to give him a 9. Maybe some people are going to think that's a bit high. Maybe you boys do. It's going to even itself out. Democracy, eh? But yeah, I'm going to say 9. What a goal. A great performance at the back as well. Obviously, I'm not giving him a higher rating because of that, but clearly one of the leaders doing the team talk before the game. Big fan. Big fan. Absolutely fantastic. And someone said it early in the chat. Since Chalobah has come into the team, he's not had a bad game, really. Maybe like 1 or 2 where he was just average.
The first game, but after that, he has been great.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, since then, he's been utterly fantastic. Naishi, I'll go with you first. What would you give Chalobah? What did you make of his goal? What did you make of his performance overall?
Yeah, he was great today. I've always liked Chalobah. I've always thought he's a good player and he's a valuable member of the squad. And I think he's definitely, like, since he's been out, sometimes when you sit out and kind of assess your game, you kind of have time to kind of really see your weaknesses. And I think that time out was really good for him. And he's maturing as a player, and I feel like we can still use him, and I really hope he does stay because he'll probably be the most experienced defender in our defensive team. Out of our defenders, sorry. So I really think he's going to be useful for next year. And like he was amazing today. Like that header, I don't know who crossed it in, either Gallagher or Palm. Gallagher, really good ball in as well. Kind of like helps that pace to get in the top corner, top right corner of the goal. So it was a really good goal, and the leap as well. He's got such a good leap on him as well. And sometimes with the stats you kind of read out, it doesn't look as good, but sometimes stats can be deceiving. You know what I mean? When you were actually, if you're watching the game, you can see how dominant he was back then. And I really think he was the best player on the pitch, and he well-deserved Man of the Match award.
I agree. Would you go along with a 9 rating, or would you go for something different?
I'll go with a 9, actually. Yes, yeah. I almost forgot the rating. I'll go with it.
Very good. Dimitar, I'll come to you. Will you agree with the 9? Would you maybe go slightly low? I don't.
I don't agree with the 9, even though I think he had a very good game. I'm gonna say an 8 for me, basically, because my man of the match was Gallagher, and I'm gonna come to that later. Fair. But yeah, for me, he was very good. His short passing, again, especially in the first 70 minutes ish, was very good. We basically managed to completely make Tottenham toothless. And even though they're not great, doing that for even 50 minutes is an achievement, I believe, because I watched the North London derby last week, and Tottenham played much, much better against Arsenal. And Arsenal, I think,
especially second half, they were really
good.
I mean,
Tottenham completely decimated Arsenal in the second half, and if it was not for some dodgy referee decisions, they could have gotten a draw maybe after the game.
Yeah.
But today, they looked like a completely different side. And even Ange saw that.
Can I quickly interrupt you? Imagine being Tottenham and you lose to Arsenal and Chelsea in the space of 4 days. Like, imagine being them.
We were close to losing to Arsenal and Tottenham in the span of a few days also. So if we had lost today.
Thankfully we didn't, you know.
But yeah, I mean.
But yeah, go
on. But yeah, so yeah, like I said, for me, an 8. He did great. It's just I think there were better players on the pitch, but yeah, I can't fault him for anything, basically.
Yeah, there you go. I think 8 is maybe a tad harsh, but I think 8.5 overall is decent as well, even if I myself would have given him a 9. Big Benoit Badiashile. A lot of criticism in recent weeks, a lot of poor performances in recent weeks. But today, I felt we finally saw the Big Ben Badiashile that we all love, or that some of us love. Because today, I thought he was overall. Now, I'm sure there was moments where he wasn't fantastic. Guys, always remember second half. I'm preparing the stream, looking for pictures to make a thumbnail. I don't always see every instant small mistake or whatever. But I thought he was really good. In particular, first half, he was so aggressive. His passing was strong. Like the way he read the game, him and Cucurella worked brilliantly together. Even when Spurs were trying to hit us on the break with over-the-top balls or whatever, he dealt with those. I think he was really, really good today. Maybe not quite as good as Chalobah because of the goal, or lack of a goal, I should say. Again, the stats don't look that great. Ground duels 0 out of 3. Tackles 0 in general. But I just thought he looked great. I just felt, I don't know.
What are his passing stats?
Same as Chalobah, 84%. So, and of long balls, he had 4 out of 8. Chalobah had, I think, 3 out of 6, so about 50%. Yeah, I'll give Badiashile. I gave Chalobah a 9. I'll give Badiashile an 8. Yeah, I think I could maybe do 7.5, but I think I'll give him that 8 because I thought he did really good today. And it's difficult. Like the most difficult thing in football is getting yourself out of a bad spell. And that's the most difficult thing to do for any individual player.
For sure.
And I think today he actually did that. And that's why maybe I'm giving him a little bit over what he deserves, purely because I give some extra credit for getting himself out of that bad spell of form. Dimitar, what would you give Badiashile? I'm expecting you to go a tad lower than that now.
I'm going to go a 7.5 because I think he was not better than Chalobah, and I gave Chalobah an 8. But in general, you are right. He was much better than the last couple of performances, and he did not look nervous, which impressed me because for me, he constantly looked nervous the past month or so. And I don't get it because it's not like these are his first games for Chelsea. He played last year much better than what he did this year thus far. So I was a bit shocked by his performances last month. today was what we want to see from him. Very well weighted passes, no panic. He had, like you said, a very good communication with Cucurella, and I think not that this is negative on Gilchrist, but I think the fact that Gilchrist and Caicedo did not have such good communication, that is why Gilchrist looked a little bit underwhelming at times. But yeah, on the left side, I felt Tottenham did nothing from their right-hand side because Cucurella and Badiashile were passing nice. They were confident. They were always covering each other. And what impressed me was not only that he was passing well, he was always positioning himself exactly to fill the gap left by Cucurella. We touched on it a bit earlier. We could leave spaces doing such fluid transitions in possession, but I think we did not, especially on our left flank. So yeah, 7.5, he's improving. Hopefully he can build on that in the next games and then in the summer.
Yeah, no, obviously. I'll talk about it when we come to Gilchrist. The only thing I want to say in terms of why Badiashile found it easier than Gilchrist in that sense, I feel, because when we were then off the ball, Cucurella did come over to be the left back. Of course. Yeah. While Gilchrist obviously kind of had to then shift out himself to become the right back again. So that is a tad different, but I do see what you're saying. The only one point where I thought Badiashile should have done better was one moment when he got the ball in a good position and Mudryk, once in like a trillion, actually
made the run,
making a run in behind, and Badiashile just didn't hit the long ball. I just don't understand why he wouldn't have played the long ball there. That was my only criticism. An 8 from me, a 7.5 from Dimitar Neshi. What would you give Badiashile, bro?
I would going with you, Laurenz, about it because he's been on such a bad. I was really getting worried about where he's going, where we're going with. I was becoming to lower my expectations with him. And I was just becoming under the assumption that he's actually an average player. And I had high hopes when he first came in, but he really needed this game. Even that second half of the Villa game, he started to show his aggressiveness. Somebody has definitely spoken to him about his aggression, whether it's Poch or one of the management team. Somebody has definitely spoken to him.
Yeah.
Games, he's a lot more aggressive. Even at the end of that Villa game when he was screaming at the referee, I love that. He's showing that you know what I mean. You're a defender. You know you got to be aggressive. And look at the size of him. You can't be timid when you're that big. You know what I mean. You got to be aggressive and use your.
I don't know about you guys, but when he's just walking around like that, to me, he always looks like a WWE wrestler. He's got that kind of like build and the kind of, I don't know. That's always what really reminds me of. So that's why I completely agree, Naishi. Like, use that. Like, you're intimidated. You're a big guy. Like, use it. Like, don't be so standoffish like he was on a few occasions previously this season. So there you go. So did you say you want to agree with the 8, or would you still go ever so slightly lower?
I'll agree with the 8 because he really did that performance.
Fair dues. Very well. Let's move over to Alpha Gilchrist. Well, the most defining thing you can say about Alfie Gilchrist today is that halfway through the second half, Ange Postecoglu moved Heung Min Son from the wing to striker away from Alfie Gilchrist. Now, am I joking a little bit? Yes. It was more of a different tactical sub rather than, we need to get Son in the game. But was Son in the game beforehand? Absolutely not. Gilchrist had him so deep in his pocket, Son didn't even know what daylight looked like anymore. It was unbelievable. Yeah, it was fantastic. Now, obviously, there was 1 or 2 occasions when, someone made a running behind him and he was kind of unsure. Do I commit? Do I stay next to Trev now?
That was only when Son was moved. I think that maybe confused him. So when Son went in the middle, he did not know who to cover. So it's almost not a major mistake.
Very much told, make sure Son don't do nothing.
Yeah,
and then Son wasn't with him anymore, and he seemed a bit unsure. What do I do now?
Yeah.
But overall, passing 82%, so pretty much the same as the other 2. Okay, long balls weren't great, 0 out of 4. Ground duels also don't look great, 2 out of 6. I'll give him a 7. I still think Son did absolutely nothing, and he is by far their best player in the grand scheme of things, other than maybe Madison, but he didn't start for some reason. So I'll say 7. I'll see why some people would maybe say 6 or 6.5 or whatever. But to me, overall, still a fantastic performance from him at right back. Still, people forget that this is still out of position for him. I know he's played there a lot this season now, but he's learned being a centre back, and he's playing out of position all the time. I know it's not an out-and-out right-back, the way the system was today, of course. But even when he took that shot, like, really early in the game, I know it went over quite a bit. But even the fact that he took the shot, I just love that in the first place. Not like passes, play back to Caicedo. Just hit it, man. Hit it. Get on top of Spurs, just show dominance early. So I like that. Nation, I'll go with you first. What do you think? Agree with the 7? A lot of people have said 6.5 in the chat. A few have agreed with the 7. Where would you go for it?
I'll go with I think 6.5 is too harsh. Maybe, yeah, I'll go with a 7. I just definitely don't think this is his position. Like I said, he's a centre back, and I definitely don't see him as a right back. And this is just kind of like a fill-in because Gusto and James are injured, and he's probably the best option. I'd even say Chalobah is the best option if Gusto and James are.
The problem is obviously now that we don't have a single other centre-back fit, we haven't seen Alfie at centre-back in the first team. So it's like if you all of a sudden play him there, then that's almost new for him again. So it's probably better to keep it the way it is for now. But yeah, no, I do agree. I do agree. He's clearly not a right back. He does have that problem that he's maybe a little short to be like a super centre-back in the Premier League. But, time will tell how this one goes. He's also still 20, so I grew myself until I was 21, so maybe he's still going to get a couple centimetres. So, he can only hope. But there you go, 2 7s. Dimitar, are you going to lower that by giving him a 6? Are you going to say 6?
I'm going to go with a 7 as well, because like we already said, his deficiency mainly was maybe not his fault, because leaving some space while transitioning from a right back to a right centre back is something that a lot of people would do. And like we said, in the first 60 minutes, Son was completely synonymous. So there is absolutely nothing we could fault him on, I believe. It's just maybe he could be a little bit more sharper when moving with the team. But yeah, I think a 7 is fine. We did not concede any goals. He did not make any mistakes. He's playing with passion. So yeah, what more can we want?
No, exactly. What more can we want? And was part of the team that kept the clean sheet. At the end, I was a little bit concerned that he was injured, and we were adding a 15th injury, but I think he might have just been a bit tired. Let's move over to Marc Cucurella. Dimitar, you already said Gallagher was your man of the match. Obviously, officially, it was Trevoh Chalobah. I'm not sure who you fully back on, Nation. Maybe you did actually go for Chalobah on this. My personal man of the match is actually Marc Cucurella, and I'm giving him as crazily high as a 9.5. Partly being aware that you guys are probably going to lower it to a 9, but I thought he was utterly brilliant. There was maybe one occasion when he let, was it Porro, was it the winger, I don't know, cross a bit too easily, but otherwise, he was just like, Joel put it perfectly here. The blocks, the aggression, the timing, the passing, he managed to do one-touch passing with Mudryk. Purely for that alone, he's outrageous. Like, how have you done that? I've not seen that from Mudryk all season. All of a sudden, Cucurella starts one-touch passing with him. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's genuinely crazy. Because, well, I do think, just quickly, on this, I do think he actually put Romero off enough to actually still stop him from scoring. I agree he wasn't close enough, but he still helped in making him not score for me. Anyway, well on Cucurella. Absolutely brilliant. The fact that he manages to, I think that what he's done in the second half against Villa and today, now people are like, so that's why Pep wanted to sign him. Because there's so many people that like discredit Cucurella so drastically. I'm not saying he's been good for Chelsea, but people point it out as if he's just a bad player. And people that say that, to me, I don't even take them seriously, really, because I'm like, you're just looking at football from a way too simplistic standpoint. Just because someone doesn't do well doesn't mean they're just flat out a bad player. And you can see that what we criticize with Mudryk so often, game IQ. Cucurella, that's why he probably has such big hair. Like, the game IQ is off the charts. It's unbelievable. Like, the way he reads the game, the way he knows, okay, now I'm in midfield. All of a sudden, he's over with Mudryk on the right-hand side. Then he's running over and helping Badish in the left-hand side. Then he's overlapping Mudryk to cross on the left-hand side. What? How he's done this, I have no idea. But he's some sort of cheat code. Like, I really hope we do this for all of the games, like Naishi said earlier, so we actually see it in more games to have a real judgment. Does this work all the time, or is it just like a bit of a purple patch? But yeah, the blocks, like, honestly, it was crazy. The passing accuracy doesn't sound amazing. It's 72%, 28 of 39 passes. But, he had a successful dribble, he had a successful cross, 3 out of 4 tackles, 9 out of 9 ground duels. Fuck me. What? That is unbelievable. 100% ground duels, 5 recoveries, 2 interceptions. Absolutely brilliant for me. I'll say 9.5. Obviously, fine if you go a little bit lower, but for me, he was absolutely brilliant. He's been a Lahm regen. Honesty, nah, Lahm couldn't do this. No, I'm joking. Lahm was unbelievable, but Lahm didn't have this kind of aggression, which is a good thing for Lahm because Lahm never got himself sent off. But yeah, there you go. Anyways, I'm waffling. Naishi, I'll go with you first. I said 9.5. Is that maybe a tad too high for you? What would you give him? But I assume you also agree that he was brilliant.
No, he was amazing in this game. He was even the Villa game, the second half. And this is why we kind of don't see the best of Cucurella, because he's almost like, as you touched on about them, Pep wanting to buy him. This is why he wanted to buy him. He's perfect in that role, in that kind of central role where he kind of goes into the middle, kind of like Trevoh does for Arsenal. Well, he doesn't do that anymore, but just on this point, he's definitely, that's his best traits, and you can see that his game intelligence is there. He's not really one to stay on the touch line and do overlapping runs all the time. He's more tucking in and doing those through balls, and he was brilliant at that today. And his tackling, his tenacity, his energy levels are almost matched with Gallagher as well. So, in terms of rating, I'd give him, just because I thought Chalobah was the best player on the pitch, I'll give him an 8.5, which is also close to giving him a 9, joint 9, but an 8.5, I feel it's fair. And like I said, long may he continue. I think this is his best role, 100%. There's no doubt in that.
Absolutely. One other thing that maybe I should mention, he actually had the most touches of any Chelsea player today. So that's it's very rare that it's not one of the centre-backs for us. So another sign about quite how important he is to the way we do this system. But it also seems that, or it's a sign, in my opinion, that the others are buying into it. Like the others are like, okay, this works. Give Cucurella the ball. Do you know what I mean? That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Dimitri, I'll come to you. A 9.5 from my end. Naishi said 8.5. What would you give Cucurella, bro?
I'm also going to go with an 8.5, and not because I think he was not good. I just think Gallagher was a bit better. But what I personally liked, I think I mentioned it, his work rate was amazing today. It's like every single time, it was like a robot. He was perfectly going forward when you're attacking, and the second we lose the ball, you can just follow his movements with your eyes. He instantly starts to look for the free space on the left-hand side, looks to Badiashile. Badiashile is moving right, and he just tucked in on the left. And this synchronization was also very surprising to me, because in the Villa game it looked a bit more chaotic, and we were chasing the game back then, but maybe they have practiced it or at least discussed it in training, because it looked very smooth and it looked like something that really caught Tottenham off guard, because like we said, they were surprised. And yeah, like you mentioned, he was running with the ball very well. He was progressing play. He actually complemented Mudryk by playing 1-2s with him. I think them both being more close to each other around the halfway line benefited them both, because Mudryk actually looked sharp, and for the first time in his career at Chelsea, he looked dangerous by starting with the ball at his feet from the halfway line, because he does that all the time, but it's never successful. But more on that later. Yeah, so 8.5 from me. He was probably the second best player on the pitch for me after Gallagher. And like Naishi said, long may it continue.
Long may it continue, absolutely. Like overall, that leaves us at a 9. Shout out to JP as well. Good spot to mention that as well. Yes, Cucurella did win that free kick, which in the end led to our 2-0. So
and that was he found himself on the right hand side, drifted centrally, and then got fouled. So this was, I think you said maybe this was even more impressive. He managed to just be everywhere on the pitch.
Exactly. No, spot on. Exactly. All right, we move on higher up the pitch. Let's go to Moises Caicedo. Not as standout good as he was in the last game, I felt, but still a decent game. Now, there was 2 passes where he tried to play through ball, once to Jackson, once to Madueke, which he unfortunately overhit. If he doesn't overhit them, especially the one for Jackson could have been 1-on-1 with the keeper. But ground duels, 9 out of 11 is very strong. Aerials, 1 out of 1 is very good as well. Let me just get them up here. What am I looking at? Okay, the passing accuracy could be a bit better, but 76% is the centre mid and a team that presses you quite a lot. It's not too bad. okay, dribble 0 out of 2, sure. Long ball 0 out of 3. That should be a bit better. But like I say, the ground duels 9 out of 11 is very, very good. I'll overall give him a 7. I think it was good, but not great. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. What would you give him, Dimitar?
I was thinking a 7.5 because to me, I mean, I have criticized him a lot, and I still can name a couple of deficiencies in his game. But next to Cucurella, I think they complement each other perfectly because Cucurella, like we said, reads the game very well, and he knows where to position himself, which is something that Caicedo sometimes lacks. And having next to him a player who can always intercept the ball very well, who can win ground duels, is a nice change of pace for him because normally he has their Enzo, and Enzo, for all his good qualities, cannot win ground duels and does not know how to intercept the ball, which is not his fault, of course. And today, like, having another responsible defensive player next to him makes him look better. The thing is, Tottenham were absolutely dreadful for about 60 minutes, so he did not have a lot of work to do. And I think this is also the case for Cucurella, but he was just so impressive doing his tactical changes and with his work rate. So that's why it looked better for us. But I would say Caicedo was not that bad, 7.5. He can for sure improve on his forward passing like usual. But yeah, I mean, that's it for me.
There you go. To be honest, maybe I have been a bit harsh with my 7. I think maybe I'll push it up to 7.5 as well. I just felt because
there was one very good tackle at the end.
Gilchrist. That was kind of my thinking.
And there was one very good tackle at the end, but normally we all want him to progress the ball a little bit better because with the ball at his feet, he always looks for passes. I think if he starts just running with the ball in his feet, like 20-25 yards up the pitch from what he normally does, finding attackers, it will be better for us. And if we have a sitter next to him or a player who does that role like Cucurella today, this could give him more freedom. So let's see. It will be interesting to see how this tactical adjustment develops for everyone.
No, I agree. Well, one thing I want to say on Caicedo, I thought he looked very sharp and quick today. Like there was a few times when, like on acceleration, he was like in duels, and he always seemed to come out on top. And so I do like that because I do think having legs in midfield is quite important in the way the Premier League has developed over the last few years. Like pace to cover ground is very crucial. At least for one, if not both players that you have in midfield. Nashi, I've raised mine to 7.5. What would you give Caicedo?
I would give him an 8. Personally, I think he was really good, and he's getting back to the Caicedo that we knew, like the Brighton one, where he just is aggressive and he timed his tackles perfectly. I think when he joined Chelsea, he was just swiping at players, but now he's now taking more care with his tackles, and his aggression is always there, and he's always reliable, never gets injured. It's always in that midfield. And I really, like I said, I even have higher hopes for him. I really think he's on that level of, I know I might be pushing it a bit by saying Kante, but I really feel like he can get to that level if he keeps just working on his game, and he's still very young, 22, 23? There's a lot of room for improvement.
I mean, physically, he is very good, and the thing is, he needs to improve his IQ as well.
Yeah,
I believe. But if he does that, he may reach Kante. We never know.
I really think, like I said, he's very young. I think sometimes the price tag puts a lot of pressure on him, especially from outside noise. I think we're a bit harsh on him because of the price tag, subconsciously maybe. But honestly, I think he was really good today. Look at those stats: 9 out of 11 ground duels. That's
9 out of 11. It was, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would give him an 8 for me.
Fair dues. Then overall, so leaves us at a 7.5, but fair enough. Let's move on to Conor Gallagher before we get on to the official attackers. Dimitar, for you, he was the man of the match, so I'll give you the reins to start. I'll rattle through a few stats, and honestly, first thing I already see your point. Passing accuracies had the most of anyone we've looked at so far with 92%. So actually, what did Gilchrist have? 82. See, there you go. So Gallagher with 92%, 22 out of 24. Okay, it's not a crazy amount of passes because he obviously was a tad higher, but still 1 out of 1 dribbles, 3 out of 4 tackles, 8 out of 17 ground duels. Okay, that's ever so slightly below half, but still 8 ground duels in the same game. It's always good. 8 recoveries on top of that as well, 3 clearances. Very good. And can't forget the assist to the first goal.
Yeah, so for me, him and Cucurella were basically about the same, but there was one situation at the end of the second half when I believe I also thought he got fouled, and he also thought he got fouled, but the referee did nothing like that, and Gallagher was just running at the referee, and he said something I'm not sure I can say on your stream, but he basically cursed at the ref laughing, and that really impressed me because he's starting to look like a no-nonsense old school player, and I like that. Like we said, he was very energetic. He created stuff. He was good with the ball at his feet, and that assist was amazing. I was kind of shocked that Palmer let him make the pass, but it was just like pinpoint perfection. So yeah, I don't know what else we can say. He also had a very good work rate because in his position, when we were defending, he was always running up and down the pitch to be able to be in the midfield zone for the counter attacking and for our creating for us creating attacking chances. He was also ever so aggressive in the final third. So yeah, for me it's gonna be a 9. I think my man of the match. And yeah, like we said, or like we hope, let's not sell him and let's try to use him next season. Even if he does not start every single game, having him as a recurring squad player, maybe starting 20-25 games would be phenomenal.
Absolutely. No, I could not agree more with that. I could not agree more. And actually, I also agree with the rating of 9. I just gave Cucurella even higher than that, but I actually agree that Gallagher deserves a 9. Great assist, like you said, seemed like absolutely planned to put the ball exactly there. The work rate was brilliant. And who was it in the chat? Fantasy PGA Tour. It's true. Just the fact that he was involved in 17 ground duels in the same game, even if he only won 8 of those 17, even just being in 17 is impressive. When I see other games,
leading by example, because we bullied Tottenham today, and it was him leading by example from the front line. Everything that we did.
Absolutely. I'll keep it at that. So, Nation, I'll go to you. 2-9 so far. Did you also think Gallagher was brilliant today? Obviously, maybe you'll give him ever so slightly less because you thought Chalobah was the best player. But even still, I assume you thought he did good.
Yeah, he did very good. I'll go with 8.5, just slightly low, only because Trevoh, I feel, just to be consistent. Yeah, I think Gallagher's amazing. If we sold Gallagher, I'm gonna be so pissed off. Honestly, we can't sell the guy. Like, he's definitely valuable, and I think that will be a very, very, very bad move from the owners. They'll further diminish the relationship between the fans, and I don't think they could come back from that. So I would really think carefully if I was the owners of making that move, because sometimes financially, that the gain of that financially and hampering the relationship with the fans doesn't outweigh each other. So, and just being subjected on this game, I think it was impressive, and he's really improved from last year. So, an 8.5 for me.
Fair dues. Overall, that leaves us at a 9. But obviously, we all agree that he was very, very good. Let's move on to Nicolas Mudryk. I thought in the first half, he looked really sharp and dangerous. Nearly scored an absolute worldie when he curled it towards the far top corner. If that goes in, absolute wonder goal, especially because the build up by Gallagher, not Gallagher, Palmer was outrageous as well with another nutmeg, I'm pretty sure. But Mudryk also had things that annoyed me a bit. Like, defensively, he really riled me up. Like, there was occasions where, like, Cucurella hadn't yet moved over to the left, like from midfield, and Mudryk was just there and
standing.
Spurs played the ball over there, and he just didn't do nothing. Like, I'm not saying you need to like slide tackle on every occasion, but close people down for flip's sake. Like, you're the fastest player in the flipping world. You need to just run 3 steps and you're already there anyway. Like, it's not like I'm asking you to run a marathon here. Just a few steps, close someone down, man. So that was a bit disappointing. Also, he had that one shot that obviously went quite significantly over again. And I said to my TV, just don't stop shooting now, because that's what he did last game. He shoots and then he has a bad shot and then he just stops. And I'm like, no, you don't stop on the bad one. Try again, because he's clearly a decent shooter of the ball. Like, if you've ever seen like training clips, training videos, and even the players in the squad, they say he is by far the best shot in the team. He just at the moment isn't able to translate that into actual games. But that's why it annoys me when you ask a bad shot that he stops shooting. Keep shooting, man. Like you can clearly shoot. Just need to do it more often until it actually goes right. And then once it does, it will probably keep going right, in my opinion. But anyway, yeah, the off the ball stuff did annoy me a little bit on occasions, but I did feel he was very dangerous still, creating a few situations. Link up play with Mudryk, link up play with Jackson on one or two occasions as well, even Palmer. I enjoyed it. Second half, honestly, until he got subbed off in the 75th, I barely noticed him. So in the second half, he just didn't really do anything. So with that said, I'll give him a 6.5. I'll give him slightly over average, but not a lot. So yeah, that's what I'll give him. Neshi, what would you give Mudryk?
I was exactly thinking that rating, that 6.5. Mudryk, he really frustrates me, if I'm being honest. Like, I think his football IQ is really low. Sometimes it's so low that people around him, what he's going to do. I think that's it kind of surprises defenders. They don't expect what he's going to do, because he does things that you wouldn't expect, or what a winger would normally do. I think there needs to be a lot of work to be really coached. I feel there's a lot of talent there, but he's really raw at the moment. And defensively, sometimes it can be very good, and sometimes it looks very, very lost positionally. Sometimes
that's the thing, right? That's why it's so frustrating, because there is moments. It's never whole games, but there is moments where he helps out defensively so much. Like, even there was one today where he cleared one of their corners, like at the far post, a good defensive header. And there's been other games previously in the season where he all of a sudden starts sprinting like a madman to block a cross or stop a tap in or whatever. And then he does that. But then the rest of the game, he's so close to closing someone down or stopping a cross, and he just doesn't even bother. It's so strange to me. I don't know. And one other thing that I'm not sure, I try and look paying attention to it every game from now on, but I feel like every single game, the first touch Mudryk has and takes bounces 1.5 yards off his foot. Every game, the first touch he has in a game. After that, it's usually fine. And for example, he had that when he controlled that ball after Palmer gave it to him when he nearly scored. That was a great first touch. So it's not like he always has a bad touch, but the first touch in the game, I feel like every time it's like Lukaku boots. It's mental. But yeah, there you go. If you agree with the 6.5 fair dues, Dimitar, what would you give Mudryk?
I'm gonna say a 7, because I don't think he was that bad. I think he was good in the first half. After the 55th minute, he basically disappeared. I mean, he's so pale, he could have turned into a ghost. No one would have noticed anyway. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what I liked today specifically was that normally our main criticism is that when he sits on the halfway line, he's basically useless. And today, it did not look like that. Yeah. Most probably, it's because Tottenham just play with a high line. So even if he sits in the halfway line, he still has loads of space, because we did not play against a low block like we usually do. So in today's formation, in today's circumstances, he looked dangerous in the first half, and maybe he deserved, if not a goal, maybe an assist, because he was creating dangerous situations, and he was sharp, like we said. He was making 1-2 with Cucurella, he was passing to Gallagher, he was communicating very well with Jackson as well. There was one situation.
Jackson early in the game.
Yeah,
Jackson
it was insane. Yeah, it was phenomenal. It was what we want Badiashile to do basically every game when he gets into that zone. Yeah, exactly. Just make it.
And even these, I know it wasn't crazy amounts of times that he played these kind of passes, but this is when comments like this 4 max, and someone said 3 earlier. Okay, this is the same person, turns out, so maybe it's just an agenda, but. You see him play that pass. He played another outrageous through ball. Was it also to Jackson, or was it to...
I think to Jackson, yeah. I think to Jackson, yeah.
Maybe they were both to Jackson. No one else, other than Palmer, no one plays those passes. Okay, Enzo, but he's in a different position on the pitch, obviously. So, those kind of passes, also against West Ham last season, I don't know, again, it's another question where, he can clearly do it. Why doesn't he? I still feel like if Mudryk was coached by Pep for 3 years, he'd win the fucking Ballon d'Or. If he understood football, obviously I'm exaggerating drastically. He wouldn't win the Ballon d'Or, but you get the point. But if he understood football to a better level, he would be because I don't think anyone can disagree that the talent is outrageous. He can clearly shoot. I know people think, he's awful shooting. I know in games it looks like that, but he can clearly shoot. He's fast as shit. He can clearly dribble. He has outrageous passing. He can cross left foot, right foot. That's all you fucking need if you just understand football. I'm not sure if it will ever come. I hope it does. Only time will tell, I suppose. Only time will tell. There you go. 2 6.5s, 1 7. Was I considering pushing it up to a 7? Maybe. Ground duels, he had 4 out of 7. He had 2 out of 3 dribbles. He had 1 out of 3 crosses, 2 out of 2 long balls. Passing was 80% as well. So the stats do look pretty good. But yeah, let's keep it at a 6.5, I would say. And let's move on to Cole Palmer. I don't really know, but I think, Nashi, why don't you go first on this one? Because it's a tricky one. He's been a bit quieter these last 2 games compared to usual. But then that outrageous free kick still led to us securing the game. Because if we never make it 2-0, God knows what happens at the end.
I think I definitely was. You read my mind there. I definitely think he's been quiet these past 2 games. Maybe that injury really affected him. I think this
illness. I think he was ill.
It was an illness. Yeah, he was sick apparently.
Okay, yeah. I think that's definitely affected. It's not quite the same pace, but you know, I love Palmer. I'm maybe a bit biased with him, but I think it was an average game from him. I didn't really actually notice him that much, other than when he passed that ball across to Mudryk and that free kick, as he touched on, that hit the crossbar, which led to the goal. So in terms of rating, 6 point. Oh no! I think a 7. Maybe even 7 is pushing, but I think I'm more comfortable with a 7 for Palmer.
I do think overall I would give him ever so slightly more than Mudryk. Now, Mudryk was in the first half maybe better than Palmer, but I think overall in the game, Palmer, obviously it was a bit quiet today, and obviously we've gotten used to him scoring at least 2 goals every game at the moment. But like, I think sometimes we forget also that he's not just good at scoring, because the way he drops deep, the way he linked up with Madueke on the right to help us evade pressure, to like help us keep the ball, play Madueke through, like just be like the way he drops deep to like be an option for Gilchrist, for the right end, for Chalobah, I guess, for Caicedo from that side, like, and then he just doesn't lose the ball. Like, he's so smart in when he like, again, Pep school, the amount of time he turns his head to scan, which is one of the things that Mudryk doesn't do. Like, just he always knows what's around him, always. And like when someone's coming behind him, he will step in front. He will turn just in time. He will lay it off just perfectly. Every time. There was this one occasion, I'm not sure if you guys noticed it, but I think it was a cross that got deflected or whatever, and it was essentially rolling out for a throw-in. And he stopped running basically immediately. And I'm like, oh, are you sure? Like, I feel like that Spurs player is going to get to that. And then I think it was Son who was still running back to it. And then Palmer was like, okay, he might get there. He just does 3 quick steps in front of the ball. So even though Son got there, Palmer just stood in the way. Like, he didn't even run to like bother. Like, but he's just, again, he's almost the complete opposite of Mudryk. Now, obviously, on the ball stuff is a bit different, but in terms of physically, like, there's nowhere near the pace of Mudryk. He has nowhere near the like 2-footedness of Mudryk. Nowhere near. But the football IQ is just so off the charts. Like, he just knows what he does. It is ridiculous. Max B, if you're not careful, I'm going to ban you, right? Because this kind of lack of footballing knowledge is illegal. Anyway, yeah, I'll probably agree with a 7. I think about like you, Nashi, 6.5, 7 is about where I'd go as well. What would you give him? Passing accuracy was 89%. Successful dribbles 4 out of 4, which is actually pretty impressive. Crosses, it was 0 out of 2. Okay. Ground duels, again, 5 out of 8 is pretty strong. I mean, expected goals, he had 1.28. I'm not sure if that's the free kick.
No, that is, if you remember, in the 4th minute, he basically missed an open goal. When it was our first chance of the game.
Oh, yeah, at the edge of the box, wasn't it?
Yeah. Jackson forced a save, and then the ball bounced from his foot onto the, like, he skied it, basically.
But would you call that a miss, or did the ball just bounce off him?
I mean, for his standards, it's a miss. If I do it, the ball bounced off my foot. But yeah, I'm going to go with the 7. I was thinking a bit higher, but then I remembered exactly this situation where he is not as sharp as he was 2 weeks ago, which is completely understandable. I'm pretty sure if we were not so bare bones right now, he would probably not be starting, or he would be maybe subbed off at halftime, because he's clearly not fit enough, I think, and not sharp enough to play, even though, like you said, he has this moment where he can just do something magical because he has the footballing IQ and the skills in his feet to produce just wondrous things in general. But yeah, he's obviously playing through illness and maybe not so comfortable to be on the pitch, because I think he stayed the full game today, right? He did not get subbed, or
yeah, correct.
because Cassidy went in for Mudryk. So yeah, so playing 90 minutes, clearly not to the best of your fitness. So yeah, a 7. He was not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, we have come to expect a lot more from him.
Exactly. No, exactly. I do think part of it, obviously playing after his illness, I'm sure that took a little bit of energy. And, you know, in German, you might know the expression, do we say Körner. There's not really a, like, anyway.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, and also keep in mind, we played Saturday night late. So it's Thursday. It's like 4 days basically of rest. So it's not like we had a full week to recover.
But still, no, you are right. But I do think Hasselup's point is at least one to pay attention to. I do think he's a bit more comfortable off the right, because then he just has a bit more space, and he's not as required for him to use his right foot as much. And then you always notice a little bit that typical left-footed. Like, how many left-footed number 10s do you know? There's not many. The left-footed, they're either wingers or they're strikers. They're rarely 10s, because they're usually quite one-footed. Again, usually every stereotype, every rule has its exceptions, obviously. But yeah, I said 7. I didn't go higher, but honestly, for me, I'm not putting any blame on him for not scoring that.
Oh no,
because it just, like, Jackson's shot, it bounced at him. Could he have scored it on a lucky day? Does he score it? Sure, but I don't think it's one where I criticize him for not.
Well, yeah, it's not like criticism, but it was in the 4th minute, and if that had gone in, we may have been even better this game. Who knows? But yeah.
There you go. Fair enough. And let's move over to Noni Madueke. Apparently, I haven't obviously seen it myself, but apparently Pochettino, after the game, said that Madueke was brilliant. And I also agree that Noni was very good. There was a few occasions where he could have maybe laid it off sooner. There was one occasion where I thought he should have shot when he then instead decided to pass. So still a little bit of decision making there, but again, this is what you get with these young players. You know, the consistencies, the decision making. This is what you get. And honestly, I mean, Madueke, sure, it's because of other injuries. That's why Palmer has to play as the 10 all the time now, and that's why Madueke is starting so much. But honestly, he's taken that chance not badly, like in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion. Honestly, I've been pretty in the overall picture. What impresses me so much, and I said this last stream already, Dimitar, I'm not sure if you remember, what I love so much about him is he just keeps going. Like, every time he will keep going. Like, he attempted 6 dribbles today. 4 of them were successful, which is pretty good. Ground duels, he had 8 out of 12. And people sometimes may be confused why I even mentioned the ground duels for attackers. You also have a ground duel on the ball. Like, it's not just an offensive thing as well. Aerial duels, 2 out of 2. Someone mentioned in the chat a few times that he also helped out defensively quite a lot, which maybe sometimes I do think he could track back a bit quicker. But it's always like, you know, he's not quite Cole Palmer or Cucurella with the IQ. He needs to see the danger first to then try to do something about it. He doesn't anticipate the danger. But when he did see it today, he like gave it everything to sprint back. And he's quick. I think he's deceptively quick, actually. Bit of a clown foot guy with, like, you know, feet out.
He's also very tall. You don't realize how tall he is unless he's standing like next to another player.
It's a bit weird. I mean, Fotmob says he's 5'9", which sounds a bit surprising to me. I don't think so.
He looked probably like 5 or 4 centimeters bigger than Gilchrist on one corner when he stood next to him.
SofaScore, on the other hand, says he's 182, which is pretty much 6 foot, nowhere near 5'9". So
yeah, no, he's not 5'9" for sure.
Whatever stats they've got, but yeah, 182 seems about more right to me.
Yeah,
about 6 foot. But yeah, what would I give Madueke? We gave Palmer a 7, but Ishio got an 8. I'm debating between a 7.5 and an 8. I'll say 7.5. I do think a 7.5 is fair. What am I doing now? These don't have space for 3-4 players next to each other. For flip's sake. Let's do it like this. I'll say 7.5. Dimitar, what would you give him? Do you think it's too high?
I think 7.5 is perfect. The thing with Noni is he has the technical ability. He has a good shot. He doesn't have such a bad footballing IQ. It's just that specific decision-making moment, either to shoot or to pass. He almost always makes the wrong decision. Almost always, without a question. And this is because, in general, he knows where to run with the ball. He knows where to receive the ball, which is also a footballing IQ. But that decision making, last pass or last minute shot moment is completely wrong with him. I sincerely hope that he can learn, but he is also showing the ability to progress himself a little bit this season. I think this has to do with him not playing every game, because I think I've mentioned it before on here. I think young players specifically can progress the best if they play, but if they're not forced to play every single game. So I think maybe he started like 20 games this season, which for me is the golden zone for a player to have enough time to be in games and enough time to just sit out a couple of games and reflect on what he's done. So if he maybe does that again next season and continues with the same progression, we might have a serious winger on our hands. Because for me, he's basically like a 7 years younger Sterling with less coaching. Because he has basically the same attributes as Sterling. He also runs a bit funny, not like Sterling funny, but also a bit funny.
Different kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah, different kind of funny. Yeah,
less agile, but therefore more powerful. On the other hand,
well, maybe less agile than Sterling, but yeah, for sure he has this very good like force when running with the ball at his feet. So yeah. Let's see what happens either with him or the managers next season. I hope we can see some improvements everywhere on the pitch.
Of course. I mean, Lee says Conte is coming home. I said he's not. Lee says watch. Italian media have reported that this is a thing, and he's almost offered himself to Chelsea. That tells you everything you need to know. First of all, I don't think it's true. But even the Italian media are saying he offered himself to Chelsea. That means Chelsea have zero interest, and it's obviously not happening. Conte was in London tonight before the Chelsea game. Okay, that makes it a bit more interesting, I suppose. But still, it's really, come on now.
Conte saw how much freedom Pochettino gets with his decision making in the club and decided that's the perfect place to return to Chelsea.
Exactly. The only thing I'd love about bringing Conte back is he would beef the living daylight out of Iqbali, and I would love that. But obviously, it wouldn't necessarily end well, but, it would be fun. There you go. Nashi, I'll come to you to finish it off, and only by the way, 7.5 from both of us. Would you agree with that? Someone in the chat said he was more better than Palmer, basically, than we are giving him, than the 0.5, which I do see. He was more involved than Palmer, but Palmer still had that free kick, which decided a lot in the game, even though obviously Jackson still had a lot of work to do on it. So I see what they're saying, but I still think a 7.5 is what I stick to.
I'm in two minds of whether 7.5 or 8, because it was very impactful on the game. You know what? Because clean sheet and we won 2-0 and it was against Spurs, I'm going to give him an 8. I think Mudryk is very productive. Every game, he's actually very consistent. If you look at his games, he never really has an awful game. Other than, I remember that Crystal Palace game. I don't know if you guys remember, he was really bad. But he's relatively very consistent, unlike Mudryk, who was the opposite.
It's true.
Very consistent. And he reminds me so much like Saka. You know how he kind of leaves out his foot to kind of block defenders whilst he's running. He just reminds me a lot of Saka, and I really think he's really held his own on that right hand side. And like you said, he's always taking a man on, and I really am glad you guys pointed out his decision making. His decision making definitely needs to be improved. There's moments where he can pass it slightly earlier. There's moments where he could have passed it to Palmer inside the box. Little slight decision making there, but his technical ability and also his IQ is not that bad either. I think his IQ is not actually that bad. He understands when to make runs and the way to position himself. Is just that decision making. But overall, he had a very good game. Good dribbles. I'll give him an 8.
Fair dues. It still leaves us at a 7.5, but there you go. I do quickly want to bring up Poch's comments on Noni Madueke because they're quite detailed and quite positive and interesting. Nizakin said, obviously, put them out, saying pretty much the first time Pochettino has delivered real praise of Madueke. He wants to see that off the ball work, which was excellent today. And then obviously the quote from Poch. Noni Madueke today, for me, unbelievable. If you analyze him from the start of the season, all the conversations and meetings, clips and videos, things like this, he was capable today of doing a fantastic job with the ball. Of course, he's an offensive player, but without the ball, he's doing a fantastic job helping Alfie defend. That is what we need for the future to build this competitive spirit. And that's exactly it. Like, obviously, there's been a lot of people arguing and complaining about Madueke, the whole penalty incident, and the laughing in the background of Thiago Silva crying after the cup semi-final and stuff. Now, in hindsight, maybe the bollocking he got both from the public, the fans, and also, I think, the manager of the whole penalty incident, that seemed to have gotten a little of something out of him. You know how there's always, like, especially coaches like Jose Mourinho, always like every player is a bit different. You need to treat them all differently. And especially nowadays, a lot of people's problems with modern football is that no players can handle criticism. But it actually seems like that Madueke seems to actually be thriving from, he messed up, he got told off, essentially, he got criticized from all directions. And rather than that crushing him and rather than him crumbling under that, he's kind of turned it into a positive and kind of seems to have almost taken motivation out of that. And that in and of itself, as much as that whole penalty incident and the laughing in the background are things that annoyed me, overall, I still think this is a very positive sign. I'm not sure if you guys agree with that, but yeah, for me, that certainly is the case. We move on and we go to Nicolas Jackson. Dimitar, why don't you go first? Nicolas Jackson should have scored very early on. If he doesn't score, he could have easily also squared it. Unfortunately, he didn't either. But then gets the very decisive goal, and I overall felt he had another very good game in the grand scheme of things. Where there was one moment where he was chasing Van de Ven. Van de Ven was like dragging the ball up the pitch, then even passed, but continued his run close to our box. And Jackson was like, okay, I'm not stopping. Followed him all the way. 7 out of 13 ground duels as well, 2 out of 3 aerial duels, 1 out of 4 tackles, 2 out of 3 successful dribbles. And the header, as much as it looked easy,
the header was very difficult to make.
Yeah, he got good power on that. He got direction on that. It's a good header. It's a good header. It's a good goal. Dimitar, what do you think? What rating would you give him?
I would say an 8. I think the second half, he was obviously more quiet because we defended for most part of it. But in the first half, he did what he does best in the last couple of games, runs very well with the ball at his feet. The one thing that I don't know how it's even possible, but I think I wrote it in our group chat even last week. Maybe the last 4 or 5 games, he has been 7 or 8 times one-on-one versus the opposing goalkeeper, and the one time he scored it was the offside against Aston Villa.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it's even possible to miss so many 1 versus 1 chances in a row and then score one which then gets ruled out for offside. This has to be like some cruel joke of bad luck, or I don't know. Because
seriously,
it's just insane to think about it, how many clear-cut 1v1 chances we create on a semi-regular basis, I would say, in the past month, and how many of them we simply just wasted. But yeah, apart from not being able to score with his feet, he had another great game. And the header, like you said, it looked easy, but it's definitely not, because there were 2 defenders in front of him and he had to make sure it was high enough so they can't reach it, and that's what he did. Yeah, I liked how he played, an 8. I also think it could be, like I have said before, I think it could be beneficial for him to get some real competition as a striker, so he can also have the opportunity to sit out some games and maybe also play off the left a bit. But yeah, an 8 from me, and let's see how he goes to the end of the season.
Padus, Neshi, what did you think of Nicolas Jackson? What rating would you give him?
For the game, I would give him 7.5 to me, only because of that miss. That miss really pissed me off, to be honest. Like, the guy's missed so many sitters, and I love Jackson. I love his everything else, but his finishing is literally finishing is just horrendous. I'll be honest with you. And also he missed that sitter as I touched on already. But as Dimitar pointed out, like, that header was very difficult because it was looping up as well. It was a very difficult header to do, and I was actually really surprised. He can't score easy goals, but he can score very difficult goals.
Yeah, exactly. Who was it against Everton, or what game was it where he like took the cross down with the left foot and then on the spin volleyed it in the bottom corner?
It
Like,
was Everton, yeah.
was it Everton?
This was
like, what an
insane.
unbelievable goal! But then other days he just can't score the easiest chance. It's so weird. It's just typical Chelsea striker curse, isn't it? Like you go from Morata to Torres, they all have the same problem, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. And I just hope that his finishing improves. And as Timothy, he needs someone to compete with, because sometimes he needs to sit out. And he's an option on that left. I think he's a very good winger, if I'm being honest. Maybe that's definitely something we can look to use him more in next season. But purely on this game, I'll give him a 7.5.
I will actually agree with 7.5. I think 8 is a little bit too high. I don't think he was like as good as like Badiashile or better than Caicedo. So I also got 7.5. But credit to him where credit is due. With today, Jackson now has 19 goals and assists in all competitions for Chelsea this season. Which is it like elite striker numbers? No. But is it very good numbers for a player that wasn't even a striker 2 years ago and plays his first season in the Premier League in a very much struggling or up and down, whatever you want to call it, Chelsea? That is actually really good. Like 19, like not that many players for us in recent years have had anywhere near 19 goals and assists in all competitions. Like we had multiple seasons where the best one had like 11, the best one in the team. And now he
has, I believe, 11 or 12 Premier League goals, and this
I
is
think
not
11 today.
yeah. This is not to be underestimated. I believe in the Abramovich era, only Hazard, Costa, and Tammy and Drogba managed to score more than 15 goals as an attacking player for us. And the other one should have been Lampard. Yeah, but I mean, as attacking players, I mean, in most seasons, our strikers got like 10. Like even Drogba had seasons where he scored 8 or 9 goals in the Premier League.
Didn't Morata score 15 in his first season?
I think it's under 15 because I think it's 13 or 14.
Maybe it was 13. Yeah, maybe it was 15 in all comps or whatever it was. But yeah, I think like Jackson still has his issues. Absolutely. I'm still not fully sold that Jackson should long term be like our number one striker. But I do think in the grand scheme of things, Jackson was a smart purchase of a player that you can use as a striker, you can use as a second striker, you can use, if you need to, as a left winger. And he's proven reasonable value for money. When you think about how much money we've spent on other players and what they
I mean, like,
but also when I say that, I don't even just mean your Mudryks, your Enzos, your Caicedos. I also mean your likes of Ugochukwu or your likes of Lavia or your likes of
or Cassidy.
Exactly.
Didn't we spend like 20 million on him?
Yeah, he basically cost the same. Or even Carney Chukwuemeka. I know a lot of these guys obviously have injury problems, and that's why they've not been able to be value for money at all. But still, that's part of it as well. Let me bring that up now that I talk about it. I bookmarked the tweet today that I thought that would be quite interesting to bring up during a stream. A list of all the injuries we've had this season, because we've just come to the last one.
I don't think you have enough space on your screen, bro.
Well, thankfully, it's nicely summarized.
Okay.
So essentially, it's about each player in the squad, outfield players only, how many games they started, how many games they missed, and how many games they played when it's also including off the bench. And you see there, obviously, Fofana missed every game. Lavia, I don't see how Lavia played one game, but missed 9 less games.
Because we bought him, at the end of the month. Yeah,
times unused or something. But still, you see Reece James there, obviously nearly as many games missed as Lavia. Like, it's unbelievable. And only two players have not missed a single game through injury this season. And that's Nicolas, Jackson, and Conor Gallagher. So as much as we can talk about, Jackson can't score, well, at least he can be fit. That's something.
Yeah.
I mean? Like, especially with the problems that we've had this season, being a player that is able to stay fit is more of a value and more of a credit than maybe it once was, because clearly not everyone is capable of doing so. So, big up Nicolas Jackson, got 19 goals and assists. And like I said earlier, I think a decisive goal today, because if this stays at 1-0, you never know what happens toward the end of the game. There's every chance they score some silly, lucky fluke goal, or we have a howler, or all of a sudden Madison scores an absolute worldie. There's every chance that happens, but the 2-0 killed it, and that was was huge, absolutely huge. Let's quickly.
Yeah, and it was also basically against the run of play because Tottenham had already started to play better, and then we did that spell when we had a couple of attacks, and then we just scored this goal, and it was over.
Exactly that. Let me push it back into the kind of original formation, if you will, just to make it a little bit more clear. And then let's quickly do the subs. The first one was Casaray coming on for Gallagher and Mudryk. Then we had Achimpong. What's Achimpong's first name? Let me figure that out. Josh. So we're going to call him Josh because there's no chance I'm going to type Achimpong here. Mate, the screen is limited. And then at the very end, Tauriainen, actually not David Washington, the midfielder that played previously, Tauriainen. Where's that O come from? He came on for Jackson for the last minute. Casaday, please, guys, help me because honestly, I know he played a significant amount of minutes today, but I still barely noticed him. He had only played 5 passes, 2 of those successful, 3 of them not successful. He had 6 touches, even though he played, 15 minutes. It's not loads, but still some. But aerial duels, he won 3 out of 4. So I thought it was a reasonable sub to make at the time, genuinely. Like, okay, give us some physique, give us some aerial ability, I thought it was decent, and I guess he did an acceptable job. He just basically didn't touch the ball, which is obviously, and also the whole accurate passes is because the only way he touched the ball was with his head. So, and obviously with your head is more difficult to pass, right? I'd probably just give him an NA, but in terms of if we want to say something about him, did you notice anything relevant, Dimitar?
I noticed how tall he is, standing in a corner next to Gilchrist. But yeah, apart from that, I think these subs were basically how do I even put it? I mean, we are scraping the barrel. Nothing personal against Casaday, but normally he would not be getting even these 10-15 minute chances because I don't know what's going on with him. Some people say he was great last year at Reading. Some people say he was bad at Leicester the first half of the season. I don't know what's going to happen to him, but yeah, he's lucky to be getting some kind of minutes, and he did okay. So basically an NA from me as well.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know where she is. I assume something up with the internet. So we'll just move on to Josh Achimpong. I'm glad to see that he came on. I still can't believe that this needed to be against Spurs at 1-0, 2-0 for Casaday and Achimpong, rather than against Everton at 5-0 up. But hey, there you go. Better late than never, I suppose. Will he get more chances? Probably not. But people that watch the youth football say he's actually a really good right back. So with our right back injury situation, I just don't understand why he hasn't been given more of a chance within this. But hey, there you go. Got his debut, and there you go. Big up him. Congratulations for the debut. Tauriainen obviously gets an NA as well. And then we finish it off with a rating for Mr. Pochettino. Is Naishi back? No. Don't know if he will come back or not. Also, when I send him a WhatsApp message, not getting through. So I assume his internet is screwed. So I'm just going to finish this off with Poch. I'll go first, Dimitar. I think he did a very good job today overall. Obviously, it's a difficult situation at the moment because we have 14 injuries. So now he did make a sub with that Casaday Mudryk one, and I guess it roughly worked out. It was also reasonable because Mudryk didn't do anything in the second half, so no complaints there. There was part of me that I wasn't amazingly happy with the second half in terms of we did come under the cosh from Spurs quite a lot. But today's Poch didn't have the bench solutions to change that. Now, if I'm honest, I know even if he had the bench solution, he wouldn't have done anything to change it. He's proven that all season that he doesn't make subs to change something. But that's not on him today. Could he have made another tactical change? Yes, no, I don't know. It's a bit harsh. I think today was on the players to get their foot back into the game. And essentially, Cucurella winning that foul, Palmer's free kick, and Jackson's goal, that essentially did that. So in the end, can't complain too much. I kind of want to give him a 0 already just for the way he hugged and sucked off Ange before the game. I'm like, this is a Chelsea Spurs derby. Stop sucking him off, man. You live in the same city. If you love him so much, meet for a coffee tomorrow. Anyway. I'm getting riled up again. But yeah, tactically, he did the Cucurella thing again, which I wasn't sure whether he would. He did it, and it worked again. So no complaints from me. But it's also a case of, other than the Cucurella thing, he didn't really have the freedom to do anything because he only had those players available that he picked. So there was no choice given to him. And the rest, I'll give him... I don't know if I want to say 9. I'll say 8. Maybe you'll say 9 and push it up to an 8.5 anyway.
Actually, yeah, I kind of agree with you because I don't think it's a 9. It's an 8 from me as well. And you are right. He did the Cucurella thing because there are no other options. What I will give him credit for is that we actually did that properly. So I can tell you that there are ways to screw that up, and obviously we practiced that last week in training, or obviously there was some coaching done around that on exactly where players should move and how they should interchange their positions, which I really liked. Of course, that has to do with the fact we have Gallagher and Cucurella, who are very, 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 very good on their work rate, and they have a decent IQ. So this worked out very well. I think these new tactical tweaks worked because in this way we are more fluid. And fluidity in football in most cases means that a player does not only have one single job and that they do not have only one specific role, they have different roles within different phases of play. And I think the standard 4-2-3-1, which you have on the screen now, is very limiting in exactly that aspect, because if you play it narrowly, if you play it standardly, most players have only one specific job and one specific role. And if that does not work out, they look like they have a bad game. And when you have a more fluid formation, you give chances for players to show their individual skills. And this is what has been bugging me all season, because I feel a lot of the players have not shown great individual skills at certain moments. And today we saw that Badiashile can be smart about his passing. We saw he can be smart about his positioning. We saw the work rate of Gallagher, Cucurella. We also saw Mudryk finally be useful in some sense, starting from the halfway line. Because in the beginning of the season, we thought, okay, he's useless starting from the halfway line. Well, surprise, surprise, it's possible for him to be useful in that position as well. Hopefully, he will start being useful overall. But yeah,
that would be nice.
I mean, yeah. But yeah, I think I mentioned to you last week or the week before, I just want us to try some kind of more fluid formation where players have more freedom. And this I did not see that coming. Obviously, no one did before last week. But yeah, let's see what we can do about that. Let's see, even if we get a new manager, will he get some ideas from that? Will the new manager also be able to see what we did this season and know for a fact what works and what does not? Because even if it's Poch, even if it's not Poch, this season must be taken as a learning curve next season, because we cannot afford to start from scratch next year, no matter who's in charge.
No, I agree with that completely. And on that note, actually, so you agreed with the 8.
Yeah, an 8 is fine, I believe, yeah.
There you go. I mean, Supreme was not happy with you saying he didn't have another choice. He says Cucurella could have just been a normal left back. That's true. But in terms of it, like people know, Dimitar knows, I don't think particularly highly of Poch in the grand scheme of things. But if how the second half went against Villa, he then didn't do this today, well, then he would have just been an idiot, really. So if the last game goes so well and then you don't do that tactical tweak in the next game, then obviously if we then win, it's no problem. But I don't think we would have played as well without this tactical change. So there you go. Obviously, there's no proof for this, so we'll never know for sure. But let me just highlight it there. Max has said it here as well, and I think someone else said it earlier. Sounds like Poch might be leaving based on strange post-match comments, people are saying. So let me bring up these strange post-match comments. I'm not sure if that's all of it. If there's more, please tell me, guys. But this is the one I've seen, and the reason I didn't bring it up earlier is because I don't really understand it. So I feel like I need to know the question for how he ended up with this kind of response. I mean,
why do people post answers without questions? That's normally also a bit irritating.
The problem with press conferences is you don't hear the questions usually.
Yeah, okay.
They don't like you can't often tell for sure anyway. Oh, Naishi's back. So far I can't see him, so I'll give it a second before I add him back. But still, there says enough is enough. Oh, there you go, Naishi. I'll let you speak on Poch in a second as well. Let's just read through this comment here, babe. It says enough is enough. Again, in response to what? Enough of what? Enough of questions about his future? Enough of what? All managers need time to translate their ideas and philosophies. It's not my decision if I get time. I don't know if I'm being judged by the owners. I don't understand that comment. Obviously, you're being judged by the owners. That's the point of them being the owners and you being the manager.
Maybe they were asking about the specific performance today and this tactical change, because it sounds like they asked him something specifically about his philosophy, or what will it be going forward, if I have to guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know me.
It's strange, but yeah, it's
for me,
strange,
this is his typical lack of accountability. Like, you can't just say all managers need ideas need time to translate their ideas and philosophy. I'm like, you had Cucurella as a possibility to invert him all season. You just chose not to. Like, sure, you've only realized it now. Fair enough. And you did now. It's better late than never. And credit to him for doing it. But you can't sit there and say that needed time. No, it's just you needed time to figure it out. Not Cucurella didn't need time to do it. You needed time to figure out that that's an idea to try at least. You know. So I don't want to jump on his case for this, because I just don't know the context of how we came to such an answer. So, I don't really know. If there's more, please tell me if there's more comments that people are judging here. But yeah, there you go. I mean, Neshi, now that you're back, in terms of Poch, what rating would you give him? We both gave him an 8. Would you go along with that? We said, well, didn't have anyone else to pick. The only thing he did was do that Cucurella midfield thing again, and he did. But it would have also been ridiculous had he not done that. So you done good. The only thing I criticised was, being all too nice and huggy before the game. And I know it's Spurs and your ex-team, and that's my whole problem with hiring him. But just for one afternoon, just pretend you don't love Spurs, okay? Just do me a favor, just pretend, okay? Anyway, what would you give an 8? What did you make of Poch today? Would you go along with an 8?
Yeah, I'll go along with an 8, to be honest. He done very well in terms of the lineup. He was forced, as you just said, because of injuries. But with that tactical change with Cucurella, because I didn't expect that, and a lot of us, I think Laurenz, you didn't expect that either.
Well, I wasn't sure, I would say. What my perspective was, I hoped he would do it again, but I wasn't sure whether he would.
Yeah, that surprised me on my end. So I'll give him props to that, and probably this is the highest rating I've given him all season. So an 8 is deserved, and with that clean sheet and the substitutions, I think he brought them on at the right time as well, which I give him credit as well. So fair play to him.
Well, Gilchrist was kind of forced. He seemed to have to come off, but yeah. On cast that I bring it up for Mudryk, I do agree. Now, Supreme saying here, y'all are talking like inverting a fullback isn't an outrageous move that could easily backfire. It's not something you do on a whim. No, you don't do it on a whim. You need to practice it in training, absolutely. But you are now talking as if not 5 of the top 6 clubs in England are doing this every week. Like, Arsenal do it, City do it, Liverpool do it. It's not like this outrageous thing that no one's ever heard of. It's Liverpool.
I mean, obviously it was done on a whim last week, but they also obviously did some training and practice in the 4 days.
They've at least worked on it a little bit.
Yeah.
They have to have done. It's a bit like, Conte worked on a back 3 all of pre-season, but the team weren't, in his opinion, quite ready for it. Hence why he started the season with a 4-2-4, if you want to call it that, or 4-2-3-1 maybe, whichever way you want to look at that Conte formation, until it kind of got too bad in that Arsenal game. It's like, now we're just doing it now, and it worked. So one of those, but still, could have thought I'd hit sooner. That's my only thing. But there you go. I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's about time we wrap this one up. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, home and away, we beat Spurs this season. So as much as that was, is it overall not a great season, whether we finish potentially 6th, 7th, 8th, wherever we end up, hey, at least we beat Spurs home and away. So that's something. I'm going to be happy about that, regardless of anything else. And yeah, it's another good win. Obviously, we play again Sunday. Who do we play Sunday? Is it Forest?
I'm not too sure, actually.
I think it's West Ham. I think so. It's West Ham. Yeah, it's West Ham.
That will be it. West Ham Sunday at 2 p.m. So that's an interesting one. UK time, that is, obviously. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy we beat Spurs. We played well. Tactical things are working. Cucurella is the GOAT. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. That would be massively appreciated. Hit that like button on your way out. Check out Nashi's Twitter down in the description down below. And yeah, I said ladies and gentlemen too many times, but hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. I can happily and confidently say upwards and onwards, and we will see you next time.